Okay, vino Madonai Eloheinu Aleinu Ma'aseh Adenu Konina Nenu Ma'aseh Adenu Konenu. We're discussing the book Shaare Orah. I'd like to dedicate the shiur today to Lun Nishmat Sarah Tziva Bat Dover, the Gam Nefesh Esther Bat Victoria Reina, the Gam Nefesh Chaya Bat Rezel Yenta, the Gam Nefesh Uri Ben Hasiba, the Gam Nefesh Dvorah Leah Bat Yafa Liba, the Gam Nefesh Sarah Rivka Bat Abraham Moshe, the Gam Nefesh Yehudit Chana Bat Arilev, the Gam Nefesh Asher Ben Mercedes, the Gam Nefesh Liba Chana Bat Yishaya David. Ruach Adonai Tenechem Megan Eden, Lehavdil Ben Ametim Lachaim Rufa Shlema for Yehuda Ben Shlomo, for Esther Simin Bat Sharapat, for Pero Bat Fega Gittel, for Bracha Bat Hadassah Ita, for Miriam Enessa Bat Leah, for Reuven Ben Hatun Hana, for Fega Bat Ella, for Rachel Bat Penina, for Yosef Ben Sarah, for Miriam Rezel Bat Yenta, and for Shmuel Ben Sarah. El Narafan Alehem, El Narafan Alehem, El Narafan Alehem. So we'll continue on Shaare Orah. We're basically below the line on page Resh Samach Hey, and we're below the line Ubesod Ve'eyeh. We discussed the pasuk last week. The pasuk says Va'eheyeh etzlo Amon. Right, we're discussing that pasuk. Va'eheyeh, right? The Vav is before the Aleph Hey Yud Hey. And here the Shaare Orah is learning the sod of this pasuk, by the way. The sod of this pasuk is basically talking about the name Aleph Hey Yud Hey. If you get me the Haftarah from yesterday, I want to show you something that, based on this class, you should know a different understanding of the pasuk. Bring me Chumash from yesterday. Thank you. Did anybody see anything in the Haftarah that was similar to what we've been learning before in this class? In Zechariah? I told you that this book is going to help you to understand the Tanakh better. Yes? 1182. Okay, what the Haftarah talked about, what's the connection between the Haftarah from yesterday and the parasha? The Haftarah, at the end of the Haftarah, talks about the menorah. So therefore, since
Menorah in the sky?
Again, on the sky, Zechariah saw about the menorah, so therefore the parasha talks about the menorah. But then there's a pasuk here that says what? 1 second, let me find it. Vayomer Elai, Ma'ata ro'eh, Va'omar, Ra'iti v'hine menorat zahav kula v'gula al rosha v'shiva nerotea alea, shiva v'shiva mutzakot la nerot asher al rosha. Yes? Talks about the menorah, and that I'll read this in English. 1 second.
It's like describing the candelabra.
Correct. And I spoke up and I said to the angel that was speaking to me, I'm sorry, I said, behold, there is a menorah made entirely of gold with its bowl on its top, and its 7 lamps are upon it. And there are 7 tubes to each of the lamps that are on its top, and 2 olive trees are near it, one to the right bowl and one to the left bowl, right? But before that, what did it discuss? It discussed about Shiva Enaim. Where is it? 1 second.
He's making accusations and he's wearing dirty clothes.
1 second.
Hashem says, take those clothes off, get out of here, Satan.
Oh, one on one side, one on the other?
1 second.
Satan is on one side. Hashem.
I don't remember that. Satan is out there accusing.
Okay, he's sure bigger than
That's clean clothing. Put on the
Okay. Pasuk 10.
Here we go. Ki hine ha'even asher natati lifnei Yoshua al even achat shiva einayim hineni mefatech pitucha neum Adonai tzvaot umashti et avon haaretz hahi bayom echad. Translate that pasuk. For behold, the stone that I have placed before Joshua, 7 eyes toward one stone. Behold, I'm engraving its adornment, the words of Hashem, Master of Legions, and I have removed the sin of that land in one day. What did we say is Enaim? Yes.
Lenses.
When the Navi is talking about Enaim, it's talking about Sfirot. Shiva Enaim, Shiva Sfirot. What is Evan? In Hebrew, is Evan masculine or feminine?
Modern or
Let's ask in modern Hebrew. Modern Hebrew is Evan masculine or feminine?
Feminine.
Masculine.
Evan?
Avanim. You don't say
Dolot.
avanot.
You say avanim dolot though. So
Okay.
the descriptive.
Good. Okay. So we see that's got it's got a masculine type of.
Oh, sorry, plural masculine, but the adjectives are feminine. It's both.
Okay, good.
Evan just means
So
both.
what do we see? Should be Evan echad or Evan ahat.
Evan achad, there you go.
I know it says there. Okay. Why Evan? What is Evan? Evan is the Binah. Binah, Evan. Think about what it's worth. Close Binah. So which it's talking about the Binah and the seven Sfirot. So that's what the candelabra is representing. The candelabra, the menorah, is representing the seven Sfirot, and the candelabra itself is the Binah. Okay? So we see in the when we read the Haftarah, when we read the Tanakh, we understand that there's little signals that the rabbi is giving us to give us deeper understandings. Now, I didn't confirm that when any of the Mefarshim, and unfortunately, there's no, so I can't really look at that. I don't know where I would look it up. I could do a little more research about that based on this book. Yeah, what is Ba'eh? Kvar hitba'er ha'uman hem hasheva sfirot. We said the Amon, which was made, right? And the Uman, which is the artisan. In Hebrew, the word is exact same letters, except the Avav and the Mem switch, right? Amon is a nursemaid. Uman is a artisan. Okay, these represent the seven sfirot shebonim sheva yemei olam. The seven sfirot that basically create, that build the 7 days of the world. Okay, shesh sfirot umalchut, 6 sfirot and malchut. Right, 6 days of creation is Shabbat. V'tzarich shesh sfirot yiyu mechubarim l'shosham. And it's necessary that the 6 sfirot should be attached to their source, to their root. What's the root? Shehu Shem Ehyeh. What name? What sfirah does Ehyeh correspond to? We said Binah is Yud Kei Vav Kei read as Elohim. That's Binah. So which Aleph Hey Yud Hey corresponds to what sfirah? Keter.
Oh,
He answered it already. He got it. He said it. He was fast. He's fast on the draw. All right. So it corresponds to the Keter, which is discussed in chapter number 10, Shaare 10, which discusses the Keter. Yes. So he says, what is Va'ehye? He's learning from here that there's a necessity where the Vav, what does the Vav do? It's Chibur. It's the Vav of attachment, meaning what? The Chibur al yidei Vav shemilat Va'ehye keneged atzfirah shishit hayisod. So we see the necessity is to connect the 6 sfirot, or the 7, right? The 6 to the Ehyeh, to the Aleph Hey Yud Hey. If a person Chas v'Shalom makes a disconnection between Aleph Hey Yud Hey and the 6 sfirot, what's that called? Mafrid Aluf. Where do we see that in the Tefillah every single day? Very risky.
Speaking in between this world and the next, into this section of Shachar.
How is that Mafrid Aluf?
Because you have to be samech geulad like tefillah.
How is that Mafrid Aluf? Separating the general.
No, that's
Modern Hebrew. Aluf. Separating the boss. Separating the boss from the creation. Not a good idea. The boss likes to be connected to the creation. The last thing we want to do if we're here to serve, our goal of serving is to make that connection stronger, not, God forbid, for weakening it. Okay? So what do we see? There's a certain prayer we say every single day that the Talmud says if a person says this 3 times a day, he's guaranteed to have a chelek olam haba. Which pray? Ashrei. Very good. And we know that the Ashrei Tefillah is really not one mizmor. It's really a combination of a couple mizmorim. Yes? We have Tehillah David. That's really the mizmor. And then there's 2 pesukim that are added before. Ashrei vetecha od yarucha sela. Ashrei am shekacha lo Hashem shadun aruha. These are 2 pesukim that are added to the mizmor of Tehillah David. Tehillah David is 145. And these 2 are added on. Now, what is the din? Okay? It says over here, when a person reads Yehi Chavod, yes? We talked about this before. Acharei ha-pesukim ha'ele, after reading the pesukim of Yehi Chavod is basically Shaddai, Shin, Daled, Yud, in all the different ways. If you look in the small print over here, there are various Pisukim here, and Shin, Daled, Yud in all the different ways Shin, Daled, Yud can be. Shin, Daled, Yud, Shin, Yud, Daled, Daled, Shin, Yud, and all that kind of stuff. It says over here, which is, okay. Yomar miyad shnei Pisukim ashrei. When a person finishes saying Yehi Chavod, immediately he should be saying ashrei. No separation. Okay? Be'acharahem pasuk tehillah David, which means it's very important that there be no separation between the end of Yehi Chavod, ashrei, and between ashrei and tehillah David. If a person has to answer Kaddish, let's say he comes to Beit Knesset late, and he finishes, he says, Asher Shvatecha Od Yaru Chasera, Hashem Shekacha Olo Hashem Shadunai Ruhav, and then he stops because he has to answer Kaddish. What does he have to do? He has to go back, ideally, to the beginning of Yehi Chavod, and if not the beginning, the last couple of Pesukim of Yehi Chavod, because these all have to be together. Okay?
But you still interrupt for that.
You have to interrupt because it's a Kaddish, you have to interrupt. But you cannot, you have to go back and fix it. Meaning what? Because when a person makes an interruption, ki pogem be'olamot elyonim, he caused damage in the upper worlds. And of course, what damage is he causing? It's called mafrid aluf. He's separating Tehillah David, which is the rest, right? Because there's the first name of Hashem that's in, one second, the first name of Hashem is in Ashrei, right? And the Ashrei, if you look inside the Sidur, it's the Yud Ke Vav Ke, all with Kamatz. And that corresponds to the Keter. And then the next name is in Tehillah David. Yud Ke Vav Ke over there is all Patach. That corresponds to the Chokhmah. So if a person makes a separation between the Ashrei part, the two Pesukim of Ashrei, and Tehillah David, that's called Mafrid Aluf. Okay? What's your question? Yeah, okay. So? Oh, it's a big deal.
That's also praise. So
it's a big deal.
All the way back now.
It's a big deal. This is part of the chinuch of tefillah that unfortunately many people don't get, especially Achenu HaAshkenazim. Because Achenu HaAshkenazim, our brothers, the Ashkenazim, have often, unfortunately, no clue about how important the tefillah is and what the sodot are, the secrets are in the tefillah. And if a person understands secrets, then you, first of all, you say the words, all of them, not some of them, not the first pasuk, not the last pasuk. You say all the words.
Well, yeah, I believe the Ashkenazim don't know what they're doing, because why do they Ashkenazim people run to Rebbe's for brachas?
Okay, let's stop, off the reservation. Has nothing to do with the topic here. We all need to have a better chinuch about tefillah. We all need to have a better education about tefillah. The Talmud says tefillah stands berumo shel olam, in the heights of the world. It's one of the most important mitzvot that we do, and we don't treat it properly. And one of the ways we don't treat it properly, in addition to not coming to minyan or things like that, or talking, one of the other ways we don't treat it properly is not recognizing, yes, they're all praises of God, but there's ways to do it better than others. A person has to be careful. If you are speaking before the king, what does it say? Da lifnei mi ata omed. Know from before whom you are standing. If a person has a meeting with a king, and the king has the ability to cut off the person's head if he doesn't behave himself, what is he going to do? He's going to follow the protocol. And if the praise of the king has to be this way, you praise the king this way, not another way.
Yeah, but he's doing that. Because when I'm saying, I'm still praising the king.
Like I said, if a person,
I'm still talking to him.
If a person is clueless about the tefillah, hopefully Hashem will save them, because they're a petty. A petty is petty, shomer petayim Hashem. A petty is really someone who is foolish. It's not a letz. A letz is a fool. It's more of someone who is, unfortunately, for lack of a better term, stupid, dumb. Like, for instance, petty.
A shoteh is synonymous?
A shoteh is a person who's got mental problems.
Cerebral
Right.
something.
This is someone who's just dumb. Right? A petty, meaning, what's the classic example that says about petty? People who smoke. People who smoke, how are they allowed to continue smoking? We know how dangerous smoking is now. There's no question about it, right? So we have a mitzvah in the Torah, v'nishmater me'od lenafshotechem. You have to guard your souls very, very carefully. So how do we allow people to smoke? So first of all, if an individual person, I heard this from Rabbi Belsky, by the way, Zichron Tzaddik Liracha, one of the heads of the OU, he gave a class on smoking, and it was a very good class. And he basically said that if a person has any kind of medical issues, the doctor tells them not to smoke, then it's an isur d'oraita to smoke. They have to stop. So if God forbid a person has a heart attack, and the doctor says smoking is what caused your heart attack, you need to stop, then it's an isur d'oraita every single time they light up the cigarette because they have to stop. But what about a person who doesn't have medical issues, at least not now? They're going to have future medical issues maybe, but they don't have medical issues now. How are they allowed to smoke? Since it says, a person has to be very careful with the neshama, which means there's certain obligations one has to protect oneself from getting sick. Therefore, why are we allowed to smoke? And the answer given is, Hashem is shomer petayim. God guards the stupid. So the same idea here. A person needs to understand how important the tefillah is. It's not just to get it done and get it over with. It's important that tefillah be done properly. And if a person takes tefillah seriously, it's, then you look at these things and you say there's a right way to do it. There's better and there's worse. And a person has to be very cautious because certain things cause mafrid aluf, like this one. This is a class where this is what we call extra credit or super duper, right? If a person's not ready, then they're not ready. Then go back to how it is before. Yes, you're praising God. Baruch Hashem, you showed up to shul. We're very happy you're here. Thank God. But if a person wants to go high level, upper level, then they have to recognize there are subtleties here that are very important. And that subtlety of Ashrei is very, very important. Okay, and he's hinting to it here. Va'eheyeh, which means the six have to be connected to the eheyeh, which is the keter. What happens if you take the keter off the head of the king? You have a king, okay, and you take his crown off. That's a tremendous insult. He's still a king, but the recognition of him being a king has been removed. Right? He doesn't display himself as a king. So when, for instance, take an example, lahavdil, King Charles, okay? When he wears his crown and all his regalia, he's the king. He looks like a king. When he walks around with a suit and thing, you're like, oh, he looks like a regular guy. Okay? So we don't want the king of all the kings, the master of the universe, to ever, chas v'shalom, look like whatever kavyachol, a regular guy. Therefore, the keter always has to be on the king. That's to return the keter how it was before.
Okay, but keter
Atara, chazir atara. There it used the word atara, which is also keter. That's fine. Okay, what is that talking about? Why lachzir ha'atara leyoshna? Ba'atara she'itara lo imo b'yom hatunato b'yom simchat libo. The goal of a marriage is a person should just be happy after 30 years of marriage, like they were happy on the first day of marriage. So it should be like your honeymoon. So what returning the keter back to Yoshna, what does that mean? Going back to how it was before, when we were at the marriage stage. We were excited about being with God, right? That's the goal. And we want to go back to how it was before. We say that also. The Ashkenazim have that tefillah. No, we say that in tefillah also. We want to go back to how it was before, when the relationship was new. It doesn't mean we're going to go back in history, but we want to treat it as if it's a new relationship. Because if it's a new relationship, what does that mean? There's excitement about it. What's missing is the excitement. Okay. Continuing on. The chibur al yidei havav shebimilat va'ehyeh keneged hasfira shishit hayisod, and the vav corresponds to the yisod, which is the end part of the zer anpin, right? Sheoleh umoshech me'aketer, and what does yisod does? It draws from the keter. L'malchut, to the malchut. V'na'aseh kol ha'ohel echad. And all of the ohel becomes one. Now you understand something we say on the holidays. Rosh Hashanah Kippur, what do we say? There's some place in the nosach, where we talk about to make the ohel echad, to make the tent one. That's what he's talking about here. It's to put all the, make sure the sfirot are connected together.
Or just
No, it's in the. I can't look it up now because I'm not going to remember exactly where it is. For the oil to be one, if I thought about it a lot, I can figure it out. But that's going to distract from the class. I don't want to do that. If you remind me afterwards, I'll find it for you. It's in the machzor of Rosh Hashanah Kippur. There's some place in there we talk about to put the ohel and make it one. Okay. The Katav HaGaon Mivilna, and the Gaon Mivilna wrote Safra Detzniuta. What is Safra Detzniuta? It's a section of the Zohar. Section of the Zohar is called Safra Detzniuta, the hidden Sefer, the hidden book of the Zohar, right? Even though all the Zohar is hidden, this is a specifically extra hidden book, yes? And the Gaon Mivilna has a perush on the Safra Detzniuta. What does it say there? Daf Kaf Aleph Amud Dalet. I don't know what Ayin Dalet is. Biviura pasuk hu amar vayehi. Now let's be careful. It's not hu amar vayehi. Hu amar vayehi. You look in the Sidur, you will see it's not hu amar vayehi. It's hu amar vayehi. Okay, that's grammatically what it says in the Sidur. So this is the pasuk is saying. What does this mean? Hu amar vayehi. Shemilat vayehi, the milah vav yud hey vav yud hey yud, murkevet mi yud k. It's basically a grafting or a combination of the name yud k. Yud k is the name of God, right? Yah, that's the name of God. What sfirah does Yah connect to? Chokhmah. That's chapter Shaare 9. Okay? Murkevet miyah shehem chokhmah ubina. Yod K. The Yod is the chokhmah. The Hey is the bina. The Vav ku keneged hadat. What is dat? The connection. Yes? Shua shoresh shel vav ketzavot. That's the root of the 6 directions, or the 6 sfirot, or the zeranpin. Uma shehikdim. And why is the da'at before the chokhmah? Hu hamar va yehi. The vav is before the yud k. Da'at chokhmah bina. So now the rabbi is going to answer, or Rabbi the Gaon Vilna is going to answer, why the vav is before. It should be yud k vav. Why is it vav yud k? Understand the question? The pasuk is vayehi, which means the vav is first, and then there's the yud hey. So we see the dot, which is corresponding to the vav, comes before the yud nikei. See what it says here. Shiadua, it is known. Sheketer shoresh hadat. The keter is the root of the dot. Think about it in the koma. In the right, you have the keter chokhmah binah, and then the dot is supposed to be there. When we talk about the keter, we don't talk about the dot. When we talk about the dot, we don't talk about the keter. Okay, because it says 10 and not 11. So the dot is the shoresh of the vav ketzavot. How do we understand this anatomically?
Your head is in the middle of your butt.
What does the vav correspond to?
The spinal cord.
Correct. And why do all of your limbs move?
Because that's your central nervous system.
All of your limbs move. Your arm moves and things move because signals are sent from the brain
Downward.
through the spinal cord and then out to the limbs. So we see within the anatomy of a human being, we see exactly the dot corresponds to the spinal cord, which is the connection between the gimel rishonim, the keter, which is the skull, the right brain and left brain, and the rest of the body. That's the dot. That's how the brain sends signals to the body. It's through the spinal cord. Okay? Okay. Umashikdim hadat lifnei chokhmah bina sheyadua sheketer shoresh hadat v'dat mimkomo. That the keter is a shoresh of the dot and the dot in its place. which means when we're talking about the dot and not the keter, the dot is in the place of the keter. Let's understand this, okay? Let's see what it explains. The root of everything is the keter. Why? Because the keter connects everything to the Ein Sof. Yes? Okay. V'sham hakol be'achdut. Everything there is achdut, because the keter is directly connected to the Ein Sof. Absolutely. So therefore, why is it that the keter is something we can't really talk about? Why is it that Arizal doesn't really talk so much about the keter? For the same reason, he doesn't talk about the Ein Sof. The Ein Sof and the keter are connected to each other. There's no interruption, chas v'shalom. Therefore, the keter and the same thing. What's the difference between the keter and the Ein Sof? The keter represents the Ein Sof that's inside the halal. Okay? Yes? Okay. The kavanah sheshorish hakol hu baketer. The shoresh, the root of everything is the keter. V'sham hakol be'achdut, and everything is achdut. Achdut, which means the achdut of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the achdut of Hashem, which is the uniqueness, the perfect achdut, where nothing else is achdut. The tov gamur, and complete tov, ultimate tov, absolute tov. What did we say? We said, remember we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago in math. The most fun exercise in the world is when they asked you, what is the absolute value of -2? I love those. It's 2. What's the absolute value of -0? -100. 100. Which means this absolute value, what it does, it takes out the minus. You just take out the minus, and so the absolute value of -1 is the same as the absolute value of 1. Everybody understand that in an equation? If you write the absolute value of 1 is equal to the absolute value of -1, they're both 1. Yes? What is the absolute tov?
Tov Moed?
What is the absolute tov?
Tov.
What is the absolute tov?
Tov plus?
God is the absolute tov. Thank you very much.
Would you say Keter?
No.
You'd say God.
Isn't Tov the name of God?
Tov is also the name of Moshe Rabbeinu.
Okay.
Okay. Tov is, it said absolute tov. Absolute tov that's God. God is the source of absolute tov, which means within the tov that God gives over, there's no ra. Ra is a creation, or really, ra is an image. There really is no ra, but that's another discussion for another day. Okay? Continuing on. So when the keter is not included, the da'at takes the place of the keter. Where is the keter? The keter is above the chokhmah and the binah, right? Now, why is it sometimes we include something that includes the da'at? When we're talking about sof, yes, which means the keter is connected, reminding us of the malchut. The malchut receives from what's from above, the world above, and then transmits to the world below. That's why it's called keter malchut. The da'at is the part that's transmitting to the world below. Yes? Okay. Very good. והיסוד המושך מן הדעת מחבר כל הנפרדים. And the yesod that is moshech from the da'at is mechaber, is attaching, is connecting all of the nifradim. All of the nifradim are the worlds that are created after the atzilut. Machazir, otam l'shosham. The goal is to return them back to their root. The ofecha kol tov, and to turn everything back to the tov. That's the ultimate. The ultimate purpose is to everything to return to the tov. Right now, there's the appearance of Ra, Etzadat Tov Ra, so there appears to be Ra. The goal is to return everything back to the Tov. That's in the resurrection. That's called Shlemut. Good? So Va'eheyeh, he's explaining the same thing in Va'eheyeh. The Vav is before the Keter, because the Vav is the Yesod, which is drawing from the Keter to the Malchut. And then he used the word Vayehi, which is the Vav over there, corresponds to the Da'at. right? And the Vav is before the Yud K, because why? When the Keter is not considered, the Da'at takes the place of the Keter. And the Keter's place is above the Chokhmah and Binah. That's why the Hu Amar Vayehi.
That's why the Vav has to be first.
That's correct. Okay, let's go to Resh Yud Daled. Lefi shu sod ha'evdel va'pirud. This is the secret of the hevdel, the separation, and the pirud. What did we say? The second day, Monday, there's no kitov. Why is there no kitov on Monday? Because the rakia was there, mavdil b'mayim l'mayim. The rakia is separating from water to water. So since there is hevdel, which is separation, pirud is separation, hevdel is difference, right? That's the beginning of the concept of two.
Duplicity.
Two, which means in order to have two, there has to be a limitation. If there's one, right, then there's no separation. Then there is no limit.
But didn't that happen the first day?
What happened the first day?
The concept of two. Because you have like
Show me the concept of two on the first day.
bara.
Or is not, even though there's a particular theory, or we're not going to get into that now, or is really one. What's the uniqueness about or? Why is or picked as the analogy for the shefa?
Because it has
What?
It's like the original, it's the or, the original.
Well, what's the qual? Why is or, out of all, remember we talked in the class, the unfortunate was very short, and we'll have to repeat the whole class, Be'ezrat Hashem, next time. We did on Thursday night. We talked about what? Patach Aliyah. No, we did Klach Pitrei Chochmah. Okay? And we talked about Ratzon of Hashem. We'll get to that. We'll repeat that class. The or, why is or used as the mashal for God's emanation? That's the question.
And it can be held.
Why is or, light, used as the mashal? Why is, you could use mayim, but we don't use mayim. Yes, or is the only item in the physical world that gives over with no loss. Right? Mayim has a. Why is Mayim? Why did the Arizal say we could use Mayim? Mayizal Mayim idaliyav. Mayim is also sometimes used as shefa, right?
Why is there a loss?
Why is or a better analogy than Mayim? Because when I have water and I take water from that water and bring it to another place, there's less water in the place where it came from. Therefore, it's not an ideal mashal. Why? Because it's missing. There's a concept of chisaron. When I give from one water to another water, the first water is now missing something. Therefore, it's not an ideal mashal. But exactly, but or is a great mashal. Why? Because two reasons. Number one, when I move or from one source to another source, the first source is missing nothing. And the second idea is that or is emanating. When I close the or, what happens? The emanation stops immediately. Okay? When mayim is given over to something else, if I stop the mayim from going, this is still here. It doesn't disappear. You follow? If it's a waterfall and I shut the waterfall off,
the water's still at the pool.
The water's still on the bottom. Whereas if there's a source of light and I shut off the light, there's darkness. The light disappears, which means whatever was given over is given over as long as there's a continued emanation. Once the emanation stops, chas v'shalom, the light stops. That's not water. So therefore, the ultimate mashal, the ultimate physical parable that's used for the shefa is or, because of these qualities.
Doesn't the sun lose energy?
Doesn't what lose energy?
A sun goes through a process. It burns.
You're thinking about it from a science. scientific point of view rather than thinking about it from a simple point of view. I have a candle. That candle gives off light. As soon as I extinguish the candle, what happens? The light stops. And I have a candle, and I can light 100 other candles, and the first candle is missing nothing. You're thinking
it'll
too deep from
eventually burn
physics.
out.
You cannot bring physics, because when you think about physics, light has two properties. There's wave
Particle
and there's particle. Therefore, if you look at the physics part of it, light is not, it's the best item
get.
for an analogy, but it's not ideal, because there are things about light that are different. But it's the closest that we can get in the physical world to talk about how God gives Shefa to the world. And that's why it's used as Or. One at a time. Okay, answer the question yourself. Answer the question yourself. The soul is directly connected to its source. Always. Kiner mitzvah Torah or. Or is also, the Torah is connected to the source. We see the Torah is also called Or. The soul is called Ner, candle. Yes? Because they're all similar. Why are you alive? Because your soul is directly connected to Shamayim. What happens if a person's soul is disconnected from Shamayim? They're dead.
But then their soul is still connected.
The concept of karet means
Okay, let's just
cut
say-
cut off completely, which means the soul is. Now we can talk about how that works. You know, is there a permanent disconnection? That's a whole other subject for another day. But if we think about from the Peshat point of view, from the simple point of view, there are 36 things a person can do to have karet, but that karet is in this world. There are 6 things a person can do out of the 36 that causes karet in this world and in the next world.
So you said the big 3.
I didn't say the big 3. A person who doesn't have Yirat Shamayim has karet in this world, has karet in the next world.
That's 4.
A person that doesn't have Ahavat Hashem has karet in this world, has karet in the next world. Cut off. Separated. That's karet. Okay?
You're not here, and it's going to be cut off from the Kisei HaKavod, just like you cover up the light.
The Kisei HaKavod is the binah. When talking about karet, the person is cut off from the source. Surah Chaim, when it says the binah. A person, when it says karet, is cut off from the top. But it's repairable. And since there should never be a situation where any Jew is cut off, if the person can't repair it themselves, other people will help them to repair it.
Because you can use on the...
One question at a time. How can you?
Repair it in the Olam Haba?
You can't. In the Olam Haba, you can't. But what happens is, okay, which Olam Haba are you talking about? Let's be careful.
You
Olam.
said that you have karet also
How many
in
Olam Haba? How many Olam Haba are there?
There's supposed to be 2, but I
Two.
only know 1.
There's the world of souls, and there's the world of the resurrection. The world of souls, that's where the person is cut off, which means his neshama is disconnected. He's not part of Tzorah Chaim. He's not part of the bundle of life. His neshama is disconnected. Okay? 1 second. Okay? And then in the resurrection, what happens? From Daniel, we know what happens in the resurrection.
Repaired.
First of all, everybody comes back. According to Daniel, if you look at Daniel, even the Rishaim come back. Which means, what are Rishaim? People who are cut off. Yes? They come back. And why do they come back? They can't reconnect themselves. Other people help them to reconnect. They give from their own to others. We saw that little bit of example, a hint in last week's parasha. What happened in yesterday's parasha? Moshe Rabbeinu says, I can't carry these people all by myself. They're tough and stubborn and all that kind of stuff. So what word is used? What word did Torah use when Moshe Rabbeinu gave over from his ruach to others? What word was used in the parasha? Come on, Baal Koreh. That's disappointing. Very disappointing.
Are you kidding?
I'm talking about him.
Okay.
I said Baal Koreh. That's very disappointing.
No, but that's a compliment to call me that.
Okay, well, there you go. So you got to live up to the standard, right? I'll read you the pasuk. וירדתי ודיברתי עמך שם, ועצלתי מן הרוח אשר עליך, ושמתי עליהם, ונסו איתך במסע העם, ולא תיסעת לבדיך. What word is used? What is the verb used? Ve'atzalti. What is ve'atzalti?
I was with you. I was near you.
That's what it means? Ve'atzalti means I was near you?
Looking at the article.
I know what it means in
Or
Hebrew.
from
I'm trying.
Me'etzal to be.
Here's Art Scroll having a very hard time with this word. And I will increase some of the spirit that is upon you.
I will bring you up to the Atzilut.
What is atzalti?
I will bring you up to the Atzilut. I will bring
The
you.
word is, what is atzilut? Emanation. That's the verb. That's the noun. Atzilut is the noun. Le'atzel is the verb. What is le'atzel? To emanate. The atzalti, I will emanate.
I will emanate in you, with you.
I'm going to emanate from me, God,
To you.
to the prophets that are going to help Moshe Rabbeinu. So then what does it say over here, next pasuk? Not the next one, maybe.
Oh, this is-
Okay, that's all it is here. There's another place where it says Vayatzel. Where does it say Vayatzel? When Moshe Rabbeinu is giving over to Yoshua the mantle of leadership, what does it say? Vayatzel. If I'm not mistaken, I'll have to look it up afterwards. So we see the word Vayatzel talking about emanation. It's a spiritual emanation.
Metaphorically, it's called light or
Correct. It's like illumination, extending illumination. That's the atzalti.
So why does it say that Moses actually lost?
He didn't lose.
Okay.
That's the whole point. That's why I use the word the atzalti. Why does he use the word the atzalti? Thank you so much for bringing that up. Why is the word atzalti? What do we know about the atzilut? It's achdut.
Atzilut is connected to
Underneath the atzilut, which is yud ke vav ke, is yichud. The atzilut, the world, it's just lenses. The sfirot are the lenses. Yes?
Yes.
This is the world that is not created. This is the world that always exists, that only is appearing now. What's new is that we have the ability to see it because of the tzimtzum. The worlds of the Bria, Yetzirah, and Atziyah are created. That's where there's the concept of ribui. What is ribui? More than one, duplication. In the world of the Atzilut, there's no duplication. There's only one. So the Atzilut, the Atzalti, what does it mean? Saying basically within that very, very small word, saying, I will emanate from my spirit to these other people, and my spirit's not going to be missing anything. That's the word Atzalti. Vayatzel min ruach. Vayatzel means he gave over from his ruach, but gave over without missing anything. Moses, when he gave over to Yoshua, his ruach, nothing was missing from Moshe Rabbeinu's ruach. Yes? When ruach here, I don't mean wind, I mean spirituality.
I forgot where I heard it. I heard that this part fell and gave it over to the 70 people who lesson.
You'd have to show me that. That is not what it says. I don't see that anywhere in the Pesukim. That Moshe Rabbeinu's ruach was lessened because it was given. First of all, God is the one. The Atzalti, the Pasuk is not talking about Moshe. It's God is saying he's going to share, he's going to give over ruach to them, which means he didn't subtract it from Moses. He gave them addition. He gave them from there, from the source, which is one. Right? Atzalti, who's mi amar mi? Isn't that God speaking to Moses, right? Vayered Adonai be'anan, vayidaber elav, vayatzel min haruach asher alav. That's Moses now. Sorry, Moses. What is in vayatzel min haruach asher alav, vayiten al shivim ish hazekenim? Right? Where does it say Moses is missing anything?
nowhere.
You're assuming that. Now, if you see that in writing someplace, I'd love to see it. Okay? Vayatzel min haruach asher alav. That's why the word is vayatzel. It's not vayiten. Why doesn't the Torah overuse the word vayiten?
That's when there's a loss.
Because when you give something
You're
to
incurring a
someone,
loss.
you're missing. That's why the verb here is vayatzel. Asher alav vayiten al shivim ish hazekenim vayhi kenoach alem haruach vayitnabeu v'lo yasafu. They had prophecy, right? Okay. You find that, let me know when you find it, okay? All right, where are we up to here? Kid'ita b'midrash rabbah, like it says in the Midrash Rabbah, Breshit. Ma en ketiv b'sheni. What is not written on the second day? Kitov. That's the Midrash, okay? Rabbi Yochanan tanele b'shem Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. Rabbi Yochanan taught in the name of Rabbi Yosef bar Chalafta, Shebo nivret Gehenam. That on the second day was the creation of Gehenam. Rabbi Hanina Omer, Shebo nivret Machloket. On that day was created Machloket. Shne'emar, Vayim avdil ben mayim lamayim. Now, what is the role of Gehenam?
Vietnam is to be able to clean yourself, to clean your soul.
That makes a presumption. What's the presumption?
That there's some problem.
That there's some dirt. Okay? Now, Gehenam cleans the person before death or after death?
After.
All right, so Gehenam presupposes another thing.
You're dead.
Death.
Death to your body. Your neshama is
I understand that. So that's why there's a discussion amongst the Chachamim. When was Gehenam created? Was it created on the second day? Or was it created on the sixth day?
After death was created.
He says, the rabbis say, what is V'hineh tov me'od? After the creation on the sixth day, it says, V'hineh tov me'od, it was very good. One of the explanations, what is tov me'od? Gehenam was created. So how do we understand this concept? Over here, we just read in the Midrash that Gehenam is created on the second day. And then the rabbis in someplace else say Gehenam was created on the sixth day. Which is it? What do you do with the ones who say it's the sixth day? How is it both? How's it both? How are they both right? How are they both right?
There's no machloket.
How are they both right? Because on the second day is created the concept of pirud, the concept of separation. What is Gehenam? Separation between body and soul. Body goes in the ground, soul goes someplace else. It's only necessary. Why? Because of death, because of the sin of Adam Arishon, which means the shoresh, the root, is on the second day. The creation, the concept is the second day. The actual creation of Gehenam is on the sixth day.
Had he not sinned, there wouldn't have been.
Had he not sinned, there would be no need for creation of Gehenam.
You would have separation.
Why and what? Now, separation is not all bad. Why is separation not bad? Again, I shouldn't say that. It's lo tov. It's not ra. Separation can be ra, but it's lo tov. It doesn't say it's ra. What does it say? There's no kitov on the second day, which means separation is lo tov. Lo tov can be neutral. Lo tov can be ra. It doesn't say it's ra. What about separation is? Okay, let me ask it a different way. You have the digit 1. Okay? The number 1. Okay? That's what exists on the first day, 1. What I said is on the second day, you have 2. 2 has a deficit. What's the deficit of 2? That you might think there are 2. That's a problem. That's called kofer. That's called kfirah. But if there is no 2, there's no bracha. What is bracha?
It's hoter.
Hoter, meaning
Extra.
extra, which means
More.
more.
More than one.
More than is needed, the hoter. That's called ribui. And that's why the word baracha comes from the shoresh bet resh kaf. What do those three letters have in common? Bet is 2, resh is 200, kaf is 20. They're the letters of ribui. The smallest, when you talk about plural, what is the smallest plural? 2.
Okay, it's the whole number.
Okay, so therefore bracha, in order to have bracha, there has to be ribui, which means there has to be extra. If a person has just what they need, there's no bracha. That's called de machsoro. What is de machsoro? Exactly what he is missing. But that's not bracha. That's what I need. What is vihoter? That is extra. Why do you get extra? So you can help others and give to others. Which means through you getting extra and helping others, that's you functioning in a godly capacity. Which means there has to be, therefore, a ribui or 2 is not always bad. It may not be tov, because the ultimate tov, the absolute tov, is 1.
So how do you give over if there's only one?
We just talked about it by Yatzel. What are you giving over? If you're giving over Torah knowledge, there's nothing missing. When the Rebbe teaches the students, the Rebbe is not missing anything. The students receive, and the Rebbe is giving over, and the Rebbe is not missing anything. Therefore, the Torah is like or. Tzedakah, you're missing when you give tzedakah, but we have a guarantee that when you give, you're going to receive back.
Multiply.
Correct. Aser te aser. Aser shetit asher.
You need 2 for that.
Correct. There you go. Ki lo yechdal evyon mikerev haaretz. That there will not be a situation where there's no evyon. And that's why the lefties, they're hinting to something that is holy, but they're getting into it in a very profane way.
Socialist and communism.
I mean, it's a great idea. Everybody should be the same. Wow, holy moly. Imagine all the people, right? This is, wow, it's a utopia. Wow. If human beings could live and not take it, then you know what? Utopia is great. Everybody's the same. But that's not how it works in communism. Okay? Everybody's the same because everybody's poor except for the people on top who are phenomenally wealthy. Well, that's not exactly fair. That's communism. So it's hinting to something that's a holy concept, but arriving at it in an atheistic or against God way. If you think about the Meraglim, go deeper. What was their sin? I know they spoke Lashon Hara against the land of Israel. What was their intention? Not to go into the land of Israel. Why was their intention not to go in the land of Israel? There's an internal reason and an external reason. The internal reason is they knew that when they go into the land of Israel, they're not going to be the leaders. They're only able to be leaders in a situation where everybody's the same. But when we go into the land of Israel, and some people are going to have more land, and some people are going to have less land, and some people are going to have lots of crops, and some people are going to have more crops, what's going to happen? Now they can't lead in that circumstance. So the Meraglim wanted to maintain, well, like it was in the Midbar. How was it in the Midbar? Everything is free. The water was free. The man was free. The air conditioning was free. Oh my God, that's Marxism. That's communism. What does God say? No, that's not how it works. You got to go into the land of Israel. There's no free stuff. You have to work. You have to earn your keep. This is how God designed the world. Which means the mistake of the Meraglim was the mistake of the communists. Unlike in the Midbar, where they were doing the Shem Shamayim, yes? And that's why they complained about the man. Because the man took away something that they didn't like. What did the man take away?
Taste.
Desire. How is it possible that for 7 months, every Jew just took exactly what they needed? They would go out and collect them. There'll be a lot of man in the field.
Somebody made
In the beginning, they made the mistake. They took extra, and they realized it turned into.
Right.
How many Jews tried to work around that? You know what? I'm going to try to take double and see if I can preserve it. I'll put it inside a plastic dish. Maybe nobody. They did it the first time. They stopped, which means they understood it's not going to work. Which means you go out and collect what you need. You do not collect anymore. What does that mean? You have no desire. You're only getting what you need. You're not getting. Why is it that people work hard? Because they think when they work hard, they get more. Because they have ratzon, they have desire, they want more. They want ta'ava.
That desires for other stuff. So why is it taking away your desire completely? That desire for avodah zarah.
They didn't have desire for avodah zarah. That was Erev Rav.
Only the Erev Rav. There's not one.
Show me.
The Moabite.
You know what really upset them about the man?
Didn't have-
Connected to what I said yesterday.
on Shabbat? And the-
What did I say yesterday?
When?
What really, really angered God about their request for meat?
Because they were really requesting something else.
They were requesting another type of meat.
Right.
You missed that, Charlie. They were requesting to be like the Egyptians.
They
Free
wanted
love.
dessert.
Able to have all the meat that they want. We're not talking about meat, slaughtered meat. We're talking about female meat. They wanted to be able to have any meat they wanted. They cried because of mishpachot. What is mishpachot? They wanted family, like they did in Egypt. And that's why God was so incensed. What Moshe Rabbeinu didn't understand. He thought they were asking for meat. And that's why Moses said, how is there going to be so much meat that I'm going to sacrifice for this people? God understood. They're not asking for meat. They're asking, they don't like the fact that God said you can't be adulterating.
Why didn't they complain all that earlier?
1 second.
Why? It's connected.
They wanted to be able to have relations with anyone they chose, even people who are not allowed. That's what angered God so much. And that's why they died eating the basar odenu bishinehem. While it's in their teeth, while they're eating it, they're dying. Because God understood what their motivation was from the beginning. Why did I bring that up?
For the man, desire.
So meaning what?
It's supposed to take away their desire. It's mentioning the man again in this parsha, and right after you have.
They were complaining about the man. Right? Why were they complaining about the man?
No, it looked weird.
That was, I was talking about that before. That's Meraglim.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Man tastes like anything they wanted it to be.
Masechet Yoma.
Correct. So it took away their desire. And that's why they didn't like the man, because it took away their desire. They didn't have desire for steak. They didn't have desire for French toast. They didn't have desire for watermelon. They had memories of the watermelon. We remember the watermelon, but they have no desire for it. That's why they didn't like it. And desire is precisely what got people, mankind, into trouble from the beginning. And that's why this parasha sets up next to parasha. And even though they're not in order, because Korach happened before Shlach. But they're not in order. Why they're not in order? Because as a direct result of them wanting to have desire, that brings the Meraglim. Meaning, you're ready to go into the land of Israel. You're not ready for the resurrection. You're not ready for the ultimate to do.
So it was not only
It was bringing back the sin of Adam Harishon, which is the ta'ava. Okay. Coming back. The second day is the concept, says over here, One second. Kita b'mirash rabba ma en katuv b'sheni kito. What's not written in the second day is the concept of kito, meaning what? Rabbi Yochanan Tanei Eleh b'shem Rabbi Yossi behalafta shebo nivret Gehinam, which was creation of Gehinam. Rabbi Hanina Omer shebo nivret machloket. On that day was created machloket. Shnei Amar vayim avdil ben mayim lemayim. It was a separation between water and water. What's it called? Machloket. On the second day, the rakia was made, the firmament, shemavdil ben mayim lamayim, that separates from the above water and the below water. Notzar pirud is the creation of the concept of pirud, separation. Ben hamayim elyonim lamayim atachtonim, between the waters above and the water below. V'nivra bo Gehinam, and that's why Gehinam was created. Shekol inyan Gehinam hu ha'eder hanolad minituk hadavar shebishosho. Let me translate this word for word. The entire concept of Gehinam is what? Is he'eder, which is missing something that is as from its inception. That is something missing that is born from removing something from its root. What do we say about water? When you remove it from its root, the source of the water is missing. That's why Mayim is the second day. Or is the first day. No pirud. When you take or, when or is emanated from its source, the source loses nothing. You guys with me?
First day, Mayim second day.
Right. Okay. Continuing on, that's pirud. That's separation. K'mosh katav ha-Maharal, like the Maharal wrote, Shemitziut hu tov. Reality. The mitziut is tov. The ha'eder hu ra. But when something is missing, that's called ra. U'bebiriyat ha'olam notzer b'yom hasheni koach sheyesh efsharut lemitziut she'ena kshura elav yitbarach. Which means on the second day was created the possibility of disconnection from God. On the first day, there's no concept of disconnection from God. Why? Because there's only unity. There's only one. When there's the concept of machloket, disconnection, or two things, therefore there can be separation. Separation, the worst separation, of course, a person separating themselves from God, which is the exact opposite of the intention of creation. Therefore, that's the beginning of Gehinam. Question?
I was doing a little studying Gemara on Sufim, and it says that things in pairs can also have like a negative, like tray, I believe, can attract demons or something like that.
Okay,
So
that's
why it has like a two-sided.
Look at the Maharsha, what he says over there. See if he has any adding to what we're talking about here. Yes, one of the explanations in the back of the Talmud. Okay, so we see why is Gehinam, because this is the beginning of, not the beginning, this is the Shoresh of Ra. What is the Shoresh of Ra? Pirud. Machloket. That is the Shoresh of Ra. That's the root of Ra. Ubebriata olam notzar b'yom hasheni koach sheyesh efsharut lemtziut she'ena kshura le'av yitbarach, which means on the second day of creation was the possibility that one would be disconnected from God, chas v'shalom. Kila mitziut hu atzmit, and it's if the mitziut is reality, the kol hachet ve'ara sheyesh ba'olam, every sin and all evil in the world, hu she'adam nifrad meborei olam ve'eno tov. Anytime a person is separating from God, that's what causes there to be pirud. That's what it causes there to be chet. That's what it causes to be ra. So what is tov? Connection to God. What is ra? Disconnection from God. And the only way that exists is only on from the second day. On the first day, there's no disconnection. We see on the first day, what does it say? That the or was hidden. Why was the or hidden? Because Risha'im la'atid lavo. There'll be evil people la'atid lavo, so God hid the or, which means the concept that could be Risha'im the first day, which means that's why he's going to hide the or. But there's no Risha'im There's no reality to Resha on the first day. It's only when the second day there's the concept of pirud and separation that could be the possibility of Resha.
But the actual Resha doesn't come until the sixth day.
Where do you see that in the sixth day? Orah. Ra is Resha, is Ra, right? That's evil. Tov is connecting. Ra is disconnecting.
Why does the first day of Tov then?
Okay, there's no Ra on the first day. Okay, there's no Ra on the second day either.
But it's Peru.
Okay, but it's the possibility for there to be disconnection. There's still no Ra. It's sort of like the same idea, the sphere of the Binah. The Binah is not Din, it's all Rachamim, yes? But it's the Shoresh of Din. The root of the concept of Din is in the Binah. But it's all Rachamim. Again, Din is not necessarily Ra. If Din is coming from God, that's not Ra, that's good. That's exactly what you deserve. That's not Ra, that's Tov. Remember, anything that's coming from the Koma, from the right side, from the left side, from the middle is all Tov. One is unlimited Tov, one is limited Tov, but it's all Tov. It's only side action, that's Ra. When we talked about that months ago?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. All right, let's go a little further. Resh tetvav vayhi mavdil b'mayim lamayim, and it was a separation between mayim and mayim. Bi'er ha'inyan b'sefer ha'emek davar. Emek davar is a perush on the Torah written by Rav Yaakov Emden. Hi rakia b'toch ha'mayim. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Netziv. No, you're right, Netziv. Sorry about that.
What did you say?
Yaakov Emden. I think that's the father of the Netziv. Don't quote me on that. Naftali Tzvi
Berliner.
Berliner.
I said Berlin something.
Okay, very
Okay,
good.
it's
That's a Netziv.
That's
Okay,
the-
thank you.
that-
Emek davar is written by the Netziv. Thank you for correcting me. Okay. Yehi rakia b'toch hamayim. The rakia should be b'toch hamayim. V'im avdil b'mayim lamayim. Mashma'ut havdalah dehai kra. There's the appearance of havdalah in this pasuk. Eno mesech mavdil, but there's no real separation. Ela erech. Meshune ben mimot elu. What's he saying here? It's not really separation. It's called erech. What is erech? Vis-a-vis. There's the upper waters, and it's the same water. The concept of versus lower, that's really the idea of separation, but there's no separation. It's sort of like the idea that people talk about, that there's a place in the world where there's two oceans that come together. And apparently you can see, or some people can see, I don't know, I've never seen it myself, the difference between one and the other. Which means they're different, but there's no separation. It's erech.
I heard that the reason the waves go up is like they're crying because they want to be in Shemayim.
Okay, very nice. What does that have to do with what we're talking about here? Just in general, the water? Oh, because you want to be in Shemayim. Okay, very nice. Want to be up. Which means Maim Elyonim and Maim Tachtonim. There's a separation from the concept of erech, which means it's really not separated. They're together. Just one is called upper and one is called lower.
They're really not separated at all.
No.
Well, there's.
What's the
they're
rakia?
Molecularly, they're not.
I don't know molecularly. Don't give me physics. We're talking spirituality here. So spiritual upper and spiritual water lowers. Okay.
There's moisture in the air.
Why is there no Tov on the second day then?
Let's see what he says. Good question. The barur, it's clear. Shigam shnehem eno betzurat mayim hanirim lanu ba'olam hatachton. When we're talking about the water on the second day, we are not talking about water like we see in our world here. This is spiritual. Ela shenizdakech hamayim shehu mashpia tov chesed. But there's a purification of the water that gives abundance and influence of tov and chesed. Remember, we said just like or is an analogy used for shefa, sometimes mayim is an analogy used for shefa. Mayim is not ideal because mayim, we talked about, is missing from the source when it's given over. That's why mayim is not the ideal analogy, but mayim is an analogy. Yizal mayim idaliyav. What is keter? Keter is called mazal. What is mazal? Don't say luck. What is mazal? It's also used for constellations. What is mazal? What word is in mazal? Yizal, which means to pour. Yizal ma'im idaliyav. Water pours from the bucket. The keter represents the pouring of shefa from above to below, from the Ein Sof to this world. That's the keter. That's why keter is the mazal. So we see over here, B'tzura acheret ha'mechoneh b'shem bazeh Hashem mayim, which means the mayim that's discussed on the second day, at least according to the Emek Davar, is not talking about physical water. It's talking about spiritual water. V'hu hanagat mashpia rav tov v'chesed. It's the concept of giving overwhelming tov and chesed. V'nikra etzlenu mayim ha'elyonim. Mayim ha'elyonim is overwhelming chesed. Ube'emet koma shetachat harakia sheni. What's below the rakia, right? Because we have two waters. It says mayim elyonim, mayim tachtonim, right? So we have above the water, it's unlimited shefa, unlimited chesed. What's underneath the rakia? Hu hanagat hateva. It's nature. Mamash ve'ameorot ve'amazalot moshlim bahem. And with there is a dominion that's given by Hashem over to the mazal. Where elyonim. Therefore, where did the goyim get their shefa from? Therefore, there is mazal for the goyim. Individual can have mazal. For all of Klal Yisrael, no. All of Klal Yisrael receives a shefa from the Mayim Elyonim. Okay, one at a time. Keter is mazal. But mazal means pouring. The question is the source of pouring unlimited, or is the source of pouring limited?
And you're saying Mayim
Elyonim is unlimited pouring. That's the Jewish people have that.
Even if they're not released.
Well, yeah, it depends on the circumstance, but that's correct. That's why it's called tachtonim, which means both the mayim are similar. What's being poured is the same. The only difference is mayim elyonim has no limitation. Mayim tachtonim has limitation. So the rakia is there to distinguish between the unlimited mayim and the limited mayim, which means erech. What do you say, erech? What's the word erech? Vis-a-vis, they're different, but really they're the same. One is limited, one is unlimited. Like, what's the difference between the sfira of chesed and the sfira of givurah? They're both giving over or. What's the difference? Chesed is unlimited. Givurah is limited. But what's being given over is the same. Therefore, it's erech.
Mayim tachtonim is for the non-Jews.
Okay. Ayen sham shebi'er shamayim ha'elyonim hu hashpat hachasadim ha'elyonim shehem en sofiyim. That the mayim elyonim is unlimited shefa, en sofiyim. Them mechayim et hakol ve'amay, and they cause life to all. Ve'amayim atachtonim hen hagat hateva. The mayim tachtonim is the way of the teva, the way of the nature. What is hateva? Elohim, which is limited. Sheniret nifredet uminhagedet b'fnei atzma, that it has the appearance that it's going on its own. The teva has an appearance that God is not involved. Okay, if you look at the majority of the scientists in the world right now, many of them are atheists. Why is that? Because they look at nature and they don't see where God's in nature. What they're too stupid to realize is all of nature is because God's in nature. They think it happens on its own. You know, just same way. Sunrise in the east, that's in the west.
So
That's
why
just how it
don't they
works.
Replicate it if it's on its own.
Okay, because they don't want to be, they're not intellectually honest.
They can't make their own DNA.
What was what?
Who doesn't? What you said?
Scientists.
Scientists.
They look at the nature, scientists, they look at the nature, and they think the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. That's basically, it's like a clock that if there was a creator, he wound it up and set back and is not involved anymore. That's kfirah. That's against our religion. God is the one who's winding the clock. And not only that, he's the one who's also causing the sun to rise in the east and set in the west.
All the time.
All the time. Therefore, it's not nature, it's there, but it's only because that's the ratzon of Hashem. It's the will of God that nature should be appearing as if there's no God. But really, God is behind it all. God doesn't release his dominion from anything. Like we talked about the other day, even regarding ratzon, the Ramchal says, God does not give over ratzon. Ratzon, everything is his, which means if you have a will to do something, you're only able to do it because he allows you to do it. If he doesn't want you to do it, you're not going to be able to do it. Which means your ratzon, just like your existence is dependent on God, your ratzon is dependent on God also. That's the place where the Ramchal went that the Rambam didn't go. Bechira chofshit. What does it mean, bechira chofshit? God gives you the ability to appear like you're free.
The appearance of free will.
Appearance of free will. Just like when we left Midbar, we left Mitzrayim, right? Cherut ala luchot. They thought they were free. They weren't really free. They were free to follow the Torah. They were free to serve God instead of serving man. Free, but free with limitation. Continue on. Vehem mechayim et hakol ve'amayim atachtonim hem hagat hateva sheniret nifredet mihanagat b'fnei atzma. The teva looks like it has its own way of doing things, which means it looks like nature runs on its own. V'rak la'atid lavo, only in the future. Yitgale kifi Adonai diber, that the mouth of God, what is diber? Spoke. It's the continued dibur of God that allows things to continue to exist.
The dibur of God is actually,
Which means there is no nature. Nature is a construct. It's all God. You have the appearance, it's the appearance that it looks like God is not involved. But that's just an appearance. That's not truth. That teva en lo mitziut. Oh, I love it. He says exactly what I've said forever. And someone said it. What does it say over here? Teva en lo mitziut. Translate that. What does that mean? Nature has no existence. Bifnei atzmo, alone. Elahu kigarzan biyad hachotzev. It's like the axe in the hand of the axe bearer. Which means if I take the axe and go down like this and down like this, yes, the axe is going to create sparks all the time, sparks and sparks and sparks. But at the end of the day, it's not happening by itself. God is the one who's holding the axe. So nature is the axe and the sparks that result. And God is the one who's running nature, which means the axe alone has no function. The axe is only there because God is the one hitting it. Got it? Nature has no reality into itself, which means there's no independent reality to nature, just like there's no independent reality to anything in the physical world. All of the physical world is a dependent reality. We understand that? That's Rambam right from the beginning. That's the first. That's more. Forget more. That's in the Yad, right? In the Yad, not in the Yad. In the Yad, beginning of the Yad. What does he talk about? First cause. That's what he says. But what happens now? So Ramchal goes one step further. He says it's not just mitziut that there's only one. Also, ratzon there's only one. Which means not only do you have a dependent existence, you have a dependent ratzon. And if you think about it, if you have a dependent existence, kal vachomer, you have a dependent ratzon. If you don't exist, you can't have ratzon. Do you understand that?
Ratzon needs to want something.
No. In order to have ratzon, there has to be existence. If there's no existence, there's no ratzon.
Why could you have Hashem's ratzon? No.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking out, not including God. Outside, as a person, we understand that our reality is dependent, yes? You exist because God wants you to exist. If God doesn't want the person to exist, he ceases to exist, right? So our entire reality, everything we see, everything in front of us is a dependent reality. Yes? That's straightforward. If your reality is dependent, how is your ratzon not dependent?
Oh, your ratzon also has to be dependent.
You understand? If you have no reality, you have no ratzon. It's not the Ramchal is saying something that's so amazing. The Rambam didn't talk about it, but it's a pshita. If you have no reality, you have no ratzon. So therefore, if your reality is dependent, how can your ratzon not be dependent?
So your bechira chofshit is dependent. And it's
just like if you poke yourself with a pin, you feel pain. Yes, that's pretty real. Okay, which means it's real, but it's still a dependent reality. Same thing. I want to do this. I feel like I have the ability to do it. That's up to God, not up to you. Am I missing something? It's pshita. It's pretty straightforward. Common sense. Not so common. I'll call it uncommon sense because people don't think this level. They don't think this deeply like the Ramchal did. He brings it to a different level. The ratzon is also dependent. So you have free choice just like you have free reality. You have free reality?
No, same free.
Sort of. It's the same free. So you have bechira chofshit. Yes, you have free choice. But only if God wants you to choose it, then you have free choice. Because at any time, your reality can disappear, and then guess what happens to your choice? There's no choice. So your reality is dependent, therefore your choice is dependent also. It doesn't mean there's no bechira chofshit. There is. Just like it doesn't mean there's no reality. There is reality. But we have to understand it's a dependent reality. And it's a dependent choice. And now we have a better understanding of what happens with Paro and leaders. Lev Melech Biad Hashem. It's much deeper level. Paro, free choice was taken away. No, it wasn't taken away. He never really had free choice.
Why is it so much more apparent with leaders and kings?
Because leaders have a greater influence on the world events. And Yud Ke Vav Ke runs the world. Everything, there's a path.
Like less.
A bit to the left. As long as it's within the path, God is not. But if the world starts going off the reservation, what's the example? The Jewish history. They have a path. And what happens over the course of time? They have freedom, they have haskalah, they have college, they have all kinds of ideas that are not within the Torah. And if they don't have a proper education, they get influenced by these ideas. And they start saying maybe, and they start veering off the path. And when enough Jewish people veer off the path, what does God do? Whack! Back on the path you go. You think you're like the guy. You think you're like the Gentiles? That's great. Let me show you how they're not like the Gentiles. Because they're going to persecute you. They're going to exile you. They're going to kill you. You want to be like them? I didn't give you this freedom so you can be like them. I gave you this freedom so you can show them how to behave. You're not supposed to be influenced by them. Hem am levadad yishkonu bagoyim lo yitchashav. They're supposed to be influenced by you, not the opposite. If you're getting influenced by them, what does God do? He puts you back on the path. And sometimes he does it the easy way, and sometimes he does it the hard way. That's all of Jewish history. That's the Spanish Inquisition. Again, individuals, of course, people righteous also perish as well. That's all the difficulties of Jewish people. That's the Holocaust. That's October 7th. It's all the difficulties. All the difficulties of the Jewish people in history are because too many were sort of going off the, and I'm not just talking about people who are not from. From people also go off the reservation. They just hide it better. But they can't hide it from the boss. Like we saw in last week's parasha. The Jewish people asked for meat. Moses said, okay, where am I going to get meat from for these people? God understood what they were asking for. They weren't asking for meat. They were asking for the ability to have relations with anybody they wanted, including their sister. That's what they were asking for. God understood what was going on. So what happens? Bam! Chet HaEgel. There was no bam. Who wiped out? What happened by Chet HaEgel?
No, they wiped them out themselves.
Moshe Rabbeinu said to Levi, go and kill the people who worship the Egel. There was no fire and brimstone coming from the Shemaim and wiping people out. Now we have the Slav. They ask for meat. What happens? Abasar odenu b'shinehem, and they're dying. Because God understood their request was not for meat. And that was not a good request. Kima'aseret Mitzrayim asher yeshavtem ba lo ta'asu u'chuma'aseret Kenan. When do we read that? On Kippur. Why are we reading that on Kippur? Don't forget. En apotropos la'arayot. No one, Chasidah Kadisha, in the wrong circumstances is not going to be able to is going to be able to be successful. Do not put yourself into a circumstance where you're going to be tested. Because you know what? You'll fail. If David HaMelech failed, you know what? I'm not sorry. You're not better than David HaMelech. Do not put yourself into a circumstance where you're going to fail. You're on a business trip. Everybody's drinking. Do not drink alcohol if there's Gentiles. Why? It's against Shulchan Aruch.
If they're Gentiles.
Yes. If you're going out with a bunch of Jewish people, of course. No problem.
What if one of them is Jewish in the group?
I know. No.
What if
You have
they're
to be very
majority are
cautious
Jewish?
about drinking alcohol with Gentiles.
Masechet Avodah Zarah.
It's Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah, but it comes from when you're drinking with that kankan with the different straws. It can be next.
Oh, you have it's a business trip. You go out to eat, a kosher restaurant. You having kosher food. Has a little bit of alcohol. Then the shiksa is looking at you. You're looking at the shiksa. Oy vavoy. Okay, then that's not limited to friar Jews. What about concubine? Stop with the concubine nonsense. Stop with the concubine nonsense. Okay, how about this? My first advice is marry one woman and live with one woman. When you're successful in marrying one woman and living with one woman, then we can talk about a second and third. And what you're going to very quickly see is one is more than sufficient.
One is too much.
It's not saying one is too much. I'm going to say one is sufficient. And the amount of work it takes to get to fix yourself, to be with another person, especially a spouse, that work is 2 and 3. You think it's going to help you. Well, let's talk about wives. What does the Mishnah call a second wife?
Sinua?
What does the Mishnah call a second wife? Sarah. What does the Mishnah call more than 2 wives? Sarot. Take the hint. Take the hint. What does Sarah mean?
A hardship?
Female trouble.
Yeah, sure.
What does Sarot mean? Multiple female trouble. One wife is not trouble. If you know how to deal with, you know how to take care of yourself, you know how to behave, you know how to make yourself into a better person. One wife, chas v'shalom, is never tzara. 2 wives, tzara. More than 2 wives, tzarot. No, not tsa'ar, tsara. Difficulty. Tsar is suffering.
Difficulty is suffering.
Okay, it's, the words are connected. There's ayin in one and there's no ayin in the other one. All right, so let's not talk about pilegesh. Let's just focus on sticking with one wife and getting to know that one wife and getting to know God by getting to know another human being like that. And that level, that's what the purpose of marriage is. That's why Kohen Gadol has to be married. Because no way he's going to the Kodesh Kodashim and representing all of Klal Yisrael and he's not married. Avoid to the Christians. They have no clue. No clue. Their priests are not priests. They're nothing. They're zeros. They're all homoim. Why? Because you cannot negate the fact that man wants to be with a woman. This is how God created man. It's abnormal.
So there used to be a pope-ass.
There used to be.
A pope-ass, really?
Popes used to be married. Popes had children. Up until about the early Middle Ages. Why did the Catholic Church ban priests from getting married?
It's just about control.
Meaning control of what?
Of the people, of the religion, of the knowledge.
Money. It's always money. What was the problem with money? You get married in France. France has rules regarding marriage. When the priest dies and he's married, guess what happens to all of his property?
Goes to the church, goes to the woman.
Goes to the woman.
What changed the woman?
So what was happening is the church was having priests getting married, building up all like Chabad houses, right? But Lahavdil. Chabad house. What does Chabad do? They give you 2 years worth of sustenance. After that, you're on your own. If you can't make it happen, out you go. We'll get someone else. A different shaliach's going to go there. They get a little bit of sustenance at the beginning, and then they got to make it on their own. Look it up. Meaning what? You have to stand on your own 2 feet. They're not there to support every place. They can. So that you start with a seed. You go to a place. You have pioneers. You go to a place where there are Jews, but no minyan and no nothing. They function as pioneers. They get supported for a year or two. And then after that, with their donations. Why'd I bring that up? When the Chabad rabbi dies, does Chabad? No, the wife gets the money. Yes, the Chabad has no problem with that, because the wife's entitled. She's put on, then when she passes, they bring another Chabad rabbi in there. She can't be the rabbi, so they bring another. We'll figure it out, okay? But the church had a problem. All these countries had these rules. So they said priests can't get married. Why? To keep the money where it needed to be in the church. Priest dies, everything goes to the church.
But the Pope is always in Italy, in Rome.
Again, the prohibition wasn't just on the Pope. The prohibition was on all priests. It happens to be that the Pope is a Catholic priest. You can't be a Pope unless you're also a priest. So no priest can get married, so they won't have children, so they won't have to give their descendants anything. Everything goes back to the church. And what's extreme nepotism? And what's the problem with that? The problem with that is over the past 2,000 years, what man becomes a priest? Only a man that likes boys. Not rocket science. We don't have that. Kohen Gadol, if you're not married, out you go. You can't be Kohen Gadol. In fact, the Mishnah says they prepare a second wife for him just in case, and he can't even be with her. He's not allowed to have relations with his wife 7 days before Yom Kippur. So he shouldn't be Tameh. Yes? But they prepare another wife for him. Why? In case the first wife dies, what happens? Boom. You can't start looking for a wife. You have to have this right away, because comes time when it's time to serve, he has to be married. If he's not married, he cannot serve. He can't serve. You have to find another Kohen.
How does he consummate that marriage, let's say, before the Avodah? He doesn't?
He doesn't consummate it. He has Kiddushin, he has Nisuin, but he doesn't have the consummation. He goes to Kodesh Kodashim. And after Kippur, he does what he's got to do. Okay. I don't know how we got off there, but let's continue on. So we see Kipi Hashem Diber, Pi Yud Kevav Ke Diber. What does that mean? The mouth of God speaks, which means the world exists and continues to exist because the mouth of God is continuing to speak. Not nature. Nature is there just like because God wills it to be there. Continue on. Vehu yitbarach nishmata dekol nishmetin. And God is the neshama for all the neshamot. K'moshe neshama manhigat haguf. Just like the neshama, your hand, does it have any free will? Absolutely not. Your hand tells it what the brain tells it to do. Or the neshama tells the brain, and the hand moves, which means your hand doesn't move on its own. It moves because what the neshama is telling it what to do. Yes? Which means the neshama is the manhig. If God is nishmata dechol nishmatin, what does that mean? No neshama functions independently. Every neshama is functioning as a part of the original. K'moshe neshama manhigat haguf, ve'en benehem pirud, and there's no separation between the neshama and the guf. Ve'havdala kach b'chol ha'olamot kulam. Same thing with all the worlds. All the worlds are run by God. That's why what permeates all of the olamot, Yud Kei Vav Kei. The pnimiyut of all the sfirot is Yud Kei Vav Kei. The only thing that the sfirot is, that's the outside. That's how it appears on the outside. But on the inside, it's all Yud Kei Vav Kei. You have the concept of the kav. What's the kav? The line. Thank you. What's the line? It doesn't go to the other end.
The limitation.
Careful. The kav does not go to the other end. The kav stops in the middle. All depends. If it's igulim, the kav stops in the middle. If it's yosher, the kav stops below the middle. That's a discussion for another day. But it doesn't go to the other end. Why does it not go to the other end? Because if it goes to the other end, then there is no mitziyut. Then there's no tzimtzum. Then there's only Ein Sof. Okay, so the kav stops in the middle. Either in the middle or a little bit after the middle. What is the kav?
Separation. Limitation.
No. Absolutely not.
The kav is the Ein Sof.
You just said two opposites. You realize that?
You're contradicting yourself.
You're very confused, I can tell. You're either lost, I don't know. It's either, if it's limitation, it's not Ein Sof. If it's Ein Sof, it's not limit. The kav is the manifestation of the Ein Sof in the halal. The kav is Yud Kei Vav Kei in the halal. What is the limitation in the halal? The Rishimu. What's the Rishimu?
Bingo.
Rishimu is not the space. What word is Rishimu? Roshem. Which means when the Or Ein Sof vacated the makom, we mean makom is not space. That would be kfira. We mean reality. When we say makom, the spiritual level of makom is reality. Or I should say differently, dependent reality. Because independent reality always exists. That's called Ein Sof. But dependent reality is everything that is inside the halal. Because if the kav goes all the way to the other end, what happens to the halal? Chalas, it's done. It's Ein Sof only. Which means dependent on what's inside the halal. First of all, everything is inside the halal that exists, that's dependent. Everything that's dependent reality is inside the halal. The Rishimu represents that everything that's in the halal that is dependent reality. Why is it called panui, empty? Why does this Etz HaChaim say that the halal is empty? It's not empty. Everything that is independent in its dependent existence is in there. Vis-a-vis Erech, vis-a-vis the Ein Sof, it's empty. Even though everything is in there. Because the Ein Sof is is infinity on infinity on infinity.
What does it have to do with
The Rishimu is basically the empty space, the leftover Or that's in the space after the Ein Sof vacated. But that Rishimu is basically everything that is dependent reality. So it's not nothing. It's technically everything. But vis-a-vis Ein Sof, it's nothing.
Everything but.
Vis-a-vis Ein Sof, it's nothing. We just described the whole concept of Moshe Rabbeinu's anava. What was the anava of Moshe Rabbeinu?
He was the greatest to talk to Panino.
Thank you. What did I say yesterday?
Right, he never bragged about
What did I say
He never
yesterday?
bragged
And that's
about
not what I said
He did
yesterday.
say it. Said it, so that's the sheet.
That's why it's nothing.
What's that?
It's nothing. It's the same as the rest of the Ein Sof. That's why that space you were talking about is nothing to the Ein Sof.
Vis-a-vis the Ein Sof, it's nothing. That's the point. Everything is, how are you comparing to something else? That's how people get themselves into trouble when they study the Sod. They don't understand that you have to understand what are you comparing to. So the Rishimu is everything. Everything. But in the Ein Sof, compared to the Ein Sof, it's nothing. Okay, now let's understand this. Moshe Rabbeinu. I know what it says in the parasha we read yesterday. What is I said this in my very brief 5-minute little spiel. What is the anava of Moshe Rabbeinu? I brought 3 levels of humility. One is Avraham, one is David, and one is Moshe. What was Avraham? Ve'anochi afar va'efer. I am afar, dust, and efer, ash. Okay, that's very low. But
There's still purpose to it.
afar has a future. Efer has a past. Yes, how do you put out a fire? You take Afer and you put it on a fire. That puts out a fire, which means Afar and Afer, even though it's very low, has a function, has a value. Next, David HaMelech. V'ani tolat v'lo ish. I am a worm and not a man.
You have a silkworm.
But worm crawls on the ground. The worm is very, very low, but a worm can make silk. Moshe Rabbeinu, what does he say? V'nachnu ma. Meaning what?
What?
We are what? In other words, we are nothing. That's what the rabbi said in Hebrew, for those who understood the Hebrew. What did the rabbi say? Moshe Rabbeinu was the ultimate bitul. I know it's a very Hasidic concept, but we can use it even if we're not Hasidim. What is Moshe, the ultimate bitul? Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest Jew that ever lived. There is no rabbi, there is no Jew who would not have to stand up for Moshe Rabbeinu when he walks into the room. Yes? Moshe Rabbeinu is everybody's Rav Muvhak, by far. Yet, vis-a-vis God, Moshe Rabbeinu is 0. The key is Moshe Rabbeinu understood that. When he approached God, he didn't approach God as Moses. He approached God as, I am nothing. And that's why he was the closest man ever to God. Even when he asked for something for himself, one time, where? How did he ask for it? What is Vayit Hanan? Zakta Rashi. What does Rashi say? Matanat Hinam. Moses is asking for a free gift. Don't look at me at the end of my life, 119 years old, all the amazing things I did. That's not what Moses says. Moses doesn't say, God, I took them out of Egypt. I suffered in the desert with them. I know I'm not entitled to be their leader anymore because I hit the rock, but please let me go. Let me go. That's not how Moses is asking. What does Moses say? You are great. You have only begun to show me your wonders. 119 years old. Moses saw God better than anyone else in all of history. You have only begun to show me your wonders. He's praising God for his greatness. And then what does he ask for himself? A free gift. I'm nobody. Just give it to me for free. That's Moses.
So he could have used the Masavot. No,
I could use lots of things. What is he?
Tzadikim.
His approach to God is, I am nothing.
He could have used the Zchut Avot, but he used
The only time he uses his stature or the stature is when he's defending Klal Yisrael. When he's defending Klal Yisrael, then he'll say,
We bring out the big
Zechor Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Yes? But vis-a-vis himself, he's not bringing Zechor Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. I am nothing. Vis-a-vis Moshe's personal relationship with God, his approach was, I am nothing. V'nachnu ma. That's the greatest level of anavah. And he's the greatest man that ever lived. That's the anavah of Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's how a person gets close to God. The more a person is great, the more important it is for them to be mevatel. Vis-a-vis, and the harder it is. That's correct. Because everybody always says, oh, you're so great, you're so good, blah, blah, blah. All that feeds the ego. That's what gets the person to the Bernie place. Cancel, nullify. If we have a concept in the halakha, I'm cooking a chulent, and a little bit of milk falls in the chulent, and it gets mixed in. What do? I verify whether or not there's 60 times. If there's 60 times, then it's called batel, which means the milk is still there. It has reality. It's in there. So if a person has an anaphylactic reaction to milk, they should not have that chulent. But at the end of the day, from a halachic point of view, there's no milk in the chulent. That's the power of bitul. Power of bitul is there's no milk in the chulent because it's nullified. Now, that's in 60 times. What about infinity of infinity of infinity? That nullification is even less. That's how one approaches God. Moshe Rabbeinu is approaching God. I am zero. I am nothing. That's how a person gets close to God, through bitul. When a person says, I am, that's Nadav and Avihu. So God says, okay, come to me. You think you're something? All right, fine. Let me bring you to me, nice and close. Closer than they want to be. What?
They said, look at us. They did a shufi kind of thing?
They didn't do shufi? They didn't do shufi? They didn't do shufi? Did they approach as a zero? Answer my question. Did they approach as a zero? That's the question. Did they approach as a zero? Nadav and Avihu.
No.
How do you see that?
Because they thought independent thoughts.
I'll read you the pasuk. Vayhu b'nei Aaron, Nadav v'Avihu, ish machtato, vayitnu bahen esh, vayasimu alea ketoret, vayakrivu lifnei Adonai esh zara, asher lo tziva otam. How did Nadav and Avihu approach God?
With the haughtiness, because they're making up.
Ish, not haughty. Ish.
Personally, personal.
Ish.
Personal gain. From
as a person.
They wanted to get.
Vanochi afa velo efer. That's not ish. Vani tolat velo ish. David HaMelech. Moshe Rabbeinu. Nachnu ma. You're coming as ish. That's already higher than Avraham Avinu. Oh, you're coming as ish. What does that mean? You lost your protection. You want to come close to God? All right, come to me right now. And that's exactly what happened. They wanted to get close, but they lost their protection. The protection, when a person gets close to God, is the bitul. The less a person is thinking of themselves as a zero, the more risk they have when they get close to God that they die. That's what we learn from Nadav and Avihu. And that's the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yosef Nichnas comes in and goes out anytime he wants. Why? Why? Because when he approached God, even though he was the greatest human being that ever lived, vis-a-vis God, he understood he was zero. Okay. Let's just do a We're going to go back to the top of the book. That was all the Perush on the bottom. Now we're going to Rabbi Yosef Kikatilia, page Reis Samach Vav. Ulefichach shemistalek v'nifrad v'nivdal kitov shusod el chai. What did we say on the second day? There was Havdalah. There was Pirud. Since there's Havdalah and Pirud on the second day, there is no Kitov. So what the Rabbi is saying here, when the Kitov is Mistalek, what is Mistalek? Is gone, which means on the second day, there's no Kitov. Why is there no Kitov on the second day? Because there's Machloket, because there is Pirud, there is Havdalah. In that situation, what happens? The El Chai retracts. What did I say yesterday? Shuls think that they improve their circumstances by getting rid of rabbis. That's not how it works. Now, if the rabbi is unworthy, the first thing is don't hire them. But once you hired them, unless he's involved in arayot or unless he's involved in gazel, how do you get rid of the rabbi? If there's a problem recruiting people to come to the shul, then the shul has to work on that. The rabbi has to do his thing, but the shul has to do their thing. Often, unfortunately, many congregants or many va'ad, what they think is they say to themselves, it's the rabbi's fault. No, it's not the rabbi's fault. It's your fault. What is the congregation not doing that's preventing people from coming and joining? Have they done a complete self-analysis? Ooh, the hardest thing in the world. When a person goes to therapy, if there's marital difficulties, what's the first thing the therapist is going to do? Have to help you analyze yourself. That's not easy. Self-analysis is difficult. But if you don't want to repeat the mistakes of old, you have to do self-analysis. If you don't do self-analysis, you're deemed to repeat the same mistakes. And every time you get rid of the rabbi, it lowers the congregation. On top of the fact that your Shekhinah disappears. We see over here, when there's machloket, when there is pirud, when there is any type of separation, what is there? The kitov we said is el chai. That's the yesod. Now of malchut, which is aleph dalu. What did we say? What happens? The Shekhinah leaves. The yesod retracts, and the Shekhinah leaves. Which means no shefa. No shefa from the right side, no shefa from the left side. And if there's no shefa from the right side, and there's no shefa from the middle, and there's no shefa from the left side, where does shefa come from? Side action. Borot nishbarim. Broken pits. That's bad news. Shoe like that, you find someplace else to pray. What's that? Boror ain't momayim. Ramayim enbo. Nechashim ve'akrabim yeshbo.
The brothers weren't together. They separated.
There you go. Azai ha'olam kulo harev. The world in that situation, when there's machloket, when there's pirud, when there's havdalah, the world is charev. What does charev mean? Destroyed. Dry. We talked about that already.
Hareva.
The en tov matsui ba'olam. And there is no tov. Let's apply this to what's going on in Israel right now. Does any side honestly think that what they're doing right now is going to bring tov? People hitting each other in the streets. Is that going to bring tov? Is that going to bring the Shekhinah? Absolutely not. What you're doing is you're causing the Shekhinah to be removed. You think you're doing things l'shem shamayim. You know what? You have to talk to people. They're your brothers. They don't understand why they have to pay for people to go to yeshiva. You can understand their argument. I'm not saying I agree with it, but you can understand their argument. Why should friar people have to pay for people to go to yeshiva? Why should their taxes be to go? Because you're going to tell me that studying the Torah is going to help the survival of the Jewish people? Well, that's true. But people who are not religious don't care about that. So it's not going to work. So you think by stopping in the middle of the street and blocking buses from going and blocking streets from going and having people come out of the car and everybody hitting each other, that's going to bring the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is gone. Not really, because the land of Israel always has a Shekhinah there. But you're doing this in the palace of the king. Both sides are wrong. Even though one side might be right according from a hashkafa point of view, the approach is wrong. At least according to the way I look at it. Based on what I'm seeing here. Is it machloka l'shem shamayim? They're going to say, of course, l'shem shamayim. Maybe not. How can you force people to pay for, again, let's talk about, make a comparison. I got sick and tired of paying for all this cents. First, I got sick and tired of paying state taxes. State taxes for ridiculousness. So what do? I pick myself up and I move with my wife to Florida. This way, first of all, the best payment is no payment, no state taxes. Okay, my property taxes might be a little higher, but there's no state taxes. And at the end of the day, even when I got to pay, when I had to go register my car and I had to pay, whatchamacallit, I bought it from the lease, so I had to pay taxes because I bought it from the lease. I had to pay sales tax. I was happy to pay. Why am I happy to pay? Because my money is not going for DEI. My money is not going for drag queens. My money is not going for this nonsense. It's going for parks. It's going for infrastructure and police that are allowed to be police. What a concept. So over here, I move because now let's understand this. Okay, these people are not religious. They don't, and unfortunately, we've done a very, very bad job of marketing it. Have we shown them the beauty of Shabbat? Have we made an effort? Maybe they don't want to see it. We have to figure out a way. These are our brothers. They're not all Erev Rav. You could be dead right. It's the approach. And when there's fighting in the streets on YouTube and everybody in the world sees fighting in the streets in Jerusalem and in Bnei Brak, this is not working for our benefit. This is part of the Chevle Mashiach. In fact, we can even say that this is the biggest Chevle Mashiach. Okay.
Because this is brother fighting, which pretty much started every single parsha.
And part of the problem is, coming from a non-religious background, I will tell you for sure, the majority of the time when you're dealing with people that are not religious, they are not interested in hearing about the halachot. You first have to start with the basics. What's the basics? Number one, is there a God? Now, we know the answer is yes. How can you prove it to somebody? Can you prove it to somebody? That's basic. Now there is, let's say you believe there is a God. Now the question is, did God reveal to mankind? First, is there a purpose to creation? Okay, you believe there's a creation, but is there a purpose? That's a discussion. We believe their answer is yes, there's a purpose to creation. Now the next question, what is that purpose? If you don't take it back to the studs, you're not going to convince anyone. You have to be able to explain everything that you have learned, you've received from your teachers, you received from your parents, in a way that someone who did not receive from teachers, did not receive from parents, can be made to understand it. Whose obligation is that? Just Chabad? No. Every Jew has this obligation. And now once you understand there's a purpose, then you talk about the revelation of the Torah on Mount Sinai. How do you prove that? How do you prove that we received the Torah on Har Sinai? Is there a videotape? I'm not aware of any YouTube videos that talk about Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai receiving the Torah, coming down with Luchot. We understand 1954, Cecil B. DeMille made the 10 Commandments, okay? But at the end of the day, that's Hollywood. That's not real. Charlton Heston, that's not real. How do you prove it? How do you prove that when we receive the Torah on Har Sinai, there's an unbroken tradition from Har Sinai to you right now? Now you have a place to start. Now you can talk about Shabbat. Now you can talk about Kashrut. Now you can talk about Tarat HaMishpacha. But before you talk about those other basics, you know where to go. How much effort is being made for that? rather than fighting in the streets about Torah learning? How many of the people who are studying learning Torah can go to the friar people and talk to them about what they're missing? Not make them feel guilty and bad. Make a convincing argument. Just like you're studying the Talmud, and you make a convincing argument, this is correct and this is correct. Can you make a convincing argument for, period, per God? Can you make a convincing argument? How are you answering that why question? I promise you, you're not answering that why question in the Nigla. There is no way you can answer that why question well with the revealed Torah. The only way you can answer it is with the hidden Torah. That's called the Sod. Without the Sod, there is no way you can even talk. First, you have to start with science, because at the end of the day, if somebody doesn't believe in God, you have to convince them that this couldn't happen on its own. That's science. That's chemistry, and that's physics. Biology doesn't get off the ground until you have chemistry and physics. Chemistry and physics is first, and then biology is next. So that's why all the Darwin arguments are nonsense, because chemistry and physics starts the ball rolling. And if you don't know, and you're smart enough to be able to study Talmud, you know what? You need to know. You need to learn, how do you talk to someone who's friar, someone who doesn't believe in God? How do you talk to your brother Jew who doesn't believe in God and tell them, by the way, let's have a conversation about this?
And then once they're convinced of that, they have no choice.
Once they're convinced of that, now you've given them the basis. And I got news to you. Unfortunately, a lot of times the people in yeshivas don't have those basics either. They're just monkey see, monkey do. They're copying what they saw from their parents and grandparents from their Rebbe. Push comes to shove, you ask them point blank, prove to me God exists. Can they do it? You going to quote me a Gemara? How are you going to do that? How are you doing that? This is part of the education that we need to have to make sure that, yes, these children who are sitting and learning are not just learning. Oh God, learning is big. I'm not saying not. Learning is important. But they got brothers and sisters that are falling off the reservation. Where is the love? What we discussed this morning. What you had in the class yesterday. You have mitzvat aseh from the Torah ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. That means if you were a non-religious Jew with no background, no education, parents who sent you to Chiloni schools, and there's something out there that's true that you don't know about, wouldn't you want someone to help you to get there? Deep down? Of course. That means Ahava tells us we need to work harder from the love point of view. I get it. You hit it with a stick, you can do better. But you know what? They're stronger than you because they go to the army and you don't. So in a fight, the yeshiva guy's not going to win. Unless he's a Hezer yeshiva, maybe he has a chance. Otherwise, he got no chance. I mean, they're picking fights with these guys. These guys are soldiers. Best of luck on that. They've killed Arabs.
They'll run all the robotic systems, the AI. They'll run all that.
Who'll run it?
The yeshiva, because they'll come up with all those programming and all this.
But that requires you to go to college, no? Because in yeshiva, the Gemara doesn't tell you about 0 and 1s and binary, and doesn't tell you about programming. That means there has to be a concept that we're going to work outside of yeshiva.
The new M4 is the keyboard.
That's wonderful. At the end of the day, they have to be able to understand, just like the rabbis in the Talmud were very well versed in all knowledge, all chokhmah. They didn't study chokhmah Yevanit. That they didn't study. Some of them did. But they all knew science. They all knew medicine of their day. How is that not part of the curriculum? How do you talk to someone who is not religious if you don't understand the basics of science? You can't. You don't have the kelim. You don't have the tools. And what's missing is real Yirat Shamayim. Because when a person has Yirat Shamayim, generally people listen to what they have to say. Authentic Yirat Shamayim, people will generally listen to what you have to say.
Well, you can't come in with a black hat and a beard. You have to come in.
I don't care what you're wearing. Yirat Shamayim has nothing to do with what you're wearing. Yirat Shamayim is internal.
You have to appease, right? You have to appease to the.
First, you have to have Yirat Shamayim. Good Yirat Shamayim, strong Yirat Shamayim, develop Yirat Shamayim. And how does a person get Yirat Shamayim? There's only one way. It's called the Torah of the Sod. That's it. The Ramchal says a person who doesn't want to study the Sod, that's the equivalent of saying, I don't want to study Yirat Shamayim.
Sod is that Shammai?
Sod, secret, the
Yes,
Kabbalah.
I see that.
That's Yirat Shamayim. That's how does a person get Yirat Shamayim? By studying the Sod. Okay. Like this book. So we see over here, the Azai Ha'olam Kulo Charev Ve'en Tov Matzui Ba'olam. The entire world is Charev, destroyed, dry, however you want to look at it. Ve'en Tov Matzui Ba'olam. And there's no Tov. There's an absence of Tov. Shneimar, Ki Mipnei Hara'a Ne'esaf HaTzadik, Yishaya. Because of Ra'ah, the Tzadik is Ne'esaf. What does Ne'esaf mean? Gathered up. Dies, or the tzaddik is not able to have influence on the world because of ra'ah. The Amar, Imru tzaddik kitov. He brings another pasuk. Say the tzaddik kitov, which means we see the connection between the yesod, which is the tzaddik yesod olam, right? And the kitov, and the el chai. Ulficha keshia tzaddik nimsa ba'olam, when the tzaddik is found in the world, az metil shalom ben shnei cholkim. When there's a tzaddik around, they're able to find shalom between all those that disagree. Ain't that interesting? Nimtza tzaddik machriya. The tzaddik is machriya, can cause there to be a decision. This is the sod, what we say every single morning. Two verses that completely disagree with each other, right? Machish means what?
No, actually fighting gets.
It's a kaf, not a kof. It's a kaf. Machishim, two verses that appear to disagree with each other. You're disagreeing with me or agreeing?
Yeah, great.
Okay. Ad she'yavo hakatuv hashlishi, until the third verse comes, ve'yachriya benehem. What is the purpose of the third pasuk? To be machriya. To basically say which one is correct, or how do we understand them both? The referee.
Enough to aim to bend over to machriya to be subdued.
Okay, machriya.
One is win.
Which means one is subdued and one wins. In a court case, there's one person who says X and another person that says Y. Okay, ultimately the judge is going to be machriya. When the judge is machriya, one person goes out happy, the other person goes out sad. But it's machriya, it's decided.
And the best thing is mediation.
Best is mediation, because then everybody walks out a little bit sad and a little bit happy. Okay, and that's ultimately, it's called a settlement. How could it be there's no settlement? We're just fighting about it? No, there has to be a settlement, which means both sides have a point. Each side can't say the other side has no point. They both have to understand each other's point. When they understand each other's point, then they can find the mid-ground where they can find agreement. The asod netzach yamin. And the sod of netzach yamin, what is netzach yamin? Hod small. Netzach is on the right side. Hod is on the left side. Kitov tzadik hu katuv shlishi machriya benehem. You have netzach. Netzach is chesed. You have hod, which is gvura. The katuv hashlishi machriya benehem is the yesod. The yesod takes the right and the left and makes rachamim, makes the middle, makes the machriya. Aval ner bayom hashishi. On the third day, we see shtei pamim kitov. Why is on the third day kitov twice? The ta'am kitov rishon keneged el chai. The first kitov is keneged el chai. Kitov sheni keneged aleph daled nun yud. The kitov sheni is for the malchut. Shehu sod Adonai haaretz. The masters of the land. The simanayich and the siman imru tzadik kitov. The omer b'berkat hamazon. What do we say in berkat hamazon? Eretz chemda tova. והסוד הזה כי אלוהים כולל בכל מעשה בראשית כי טוב בכל דבר ודבר שהוא סוד האומן. The artisan is God. The artisan of the world is God, yes? And that is, what does it say over here? Ki tov. Because the ultimate tov, of course, is God is the ultimate ki tov. That is the absolute tov. Why did God create the world? For whose benefit? Careful. Unfortunately, there's a whole segment of people that misunderstand what the Rebbe said. At least I think they misunderstood what the Rebbe said, because I don't think there's any way the Rebbe said this, that they were fulfilling the needs of God.
I just said it.
We are not fulfilling the needs of God. God has no needs. God is not missing anything. God is perfect. God created the world so that we can benefit from his tov. And that's his ratzon. His ratzon, his will, is for us to benefit from his tov. And the ultimate benefit is when we do it and we earn it, as opposed to getting it for free. Very easy. If a person would create it for free and didn't have to work and didn't have to serve, it's easy. You get the tov.
That's angel.
But it's not the same. It's not the same. Why? Because you didn't earn it. If you didn't earn it, then you can't stand up straight and be happy of the connection that you have because you inherited the connection. No, we want you to work for the connection. God wants us to work for the connection. Work for the connection means you have Yetzer Hara, which means you have challenges, you have temptation, you have difficulties.
You have
That's-
to earn it.
You have to earn it. That's correct. That's what life is all about in this world. Life in this world is about earning. You don't get any reward in this world except for very few things. This world is all about earning. Earning in a situation where it's not so clear. Or when you're connected, you become disconnected, you got to reconnect. Hide and seek. Okay, you go to sleep at night, you wake up in the morning, you have to find God again. You went to sleep.
Modeani.
You have to recognize God's there. While you were sleeping, you were
160.
dead. Right? So when you wake up, the quicker you realize that God is there.
You
Make-
have that conscious.
You make netilat, you go to the bathroom, you make netilat yadayim, you say brachot hashachar, you say kriyat shema. That's called ol machut shamayim.
27 minutes.
All right.
Finish it.
We'll stop here. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen.
Okay.
So did we finish